Howard Schultz and Starbucks' success. On a quiet morning, imagine walking into a coffee shop, the soft hum of grinders mixing with the low murmur of voices. You order your favorite drink, wrap your hands around the warm cup, and feel a small moment of peace. For millions of people, that place is Starbucks. Yet behind the familiar green logo is a story many do not know, a story of poverty, rejection, and relentless belief in a vision. Howard Schultz was born in Brooklyn, New York, into a struggling family. His father worked simple jobs that never paid enough, and his mother often worried about bills piling up. As a boy, Howard dreamed of a different future, even when life seemed determined to keep him small. He watched the world from the steps of a crowded apartment building, imagining a life beyond those walls. The journey from that boyhood dream to building a global coffee empire was anything but smooth. It was marked by slammed doors, skeptical investors, and sleepless nights. What kept him moving forward was a conviction that coffee was not only a drink, but an experience, something that could connect people across cultures and continents. Welcome to Learn English Listening. My name is Lydia, and together we explore stories of resilience, vision, and growth. Stories told not only to inspire, but also to help you improve your English in a way that feels natural and alive. As you listen, notice the simple phrases and everyday expressions woven into these journeys. They are small keys you can carry into your own conversations. So let me ask you this. What part of the world are you in as you hear this story? Take a moment to share in the comments. I would love to know where this story reaches you today. Howard's path was never a straight line. In his early years, the weight of responsibility pressed on him from every direction. To escape the cycle of poverty, he earned a football scholarship that gave him access to college. But even then, money was tight, and every semester felt like a gamble. Could he make it to the finish line without falling behind? He worked odd jobs, sold his own blood at one point, and learned early what it meant to fight for a dream when the odds were stacked against him. When he first discovered Starbucks, it was not the coffee giant we know today. At that time, in the early 1980s, it was just a small shop in Seattle selling roasted beans and equipment. Howard joined the company, captivated by the aroma, the culture, and the possibility. He believed he could transform Starbucks into more than a supplier, into a gathering place. But the moment he began to share this vision, the resistance came fast. He traveled across the country, pitching his idea to investors. One by one, they turned him down. More than 200 times, he was told no. Each rejection carried the sting of doubt. Was his vision too big, or was he simply not the kind of man people wanted to bet on? For someone who had grown up in the shadows of financial struggle, hearing "not enough" again and again cut deep. And yet, reflection is born in such silence. Many of us, in our late 20s and 30s, know the pressure of being judged, of being measured, of feeling like we are always behind. It is not only about money, it is about belonging, about being trusted to lead, and yet, in those moments of doubt, Howard found a strange kind of fuel. Every no became proof that his dream mattered enough to fight for. He reminded himself that people often resist what they do not yet understand. Instead of letting rejection bury him, he let it sharpen his focus. Each closed door became a one more reason to keep knocking until someone finally said yes. So let me ask you, have you ever carried a burden no one else could see? Think about the invisible weight you might be holding and how it shapes the choices you make each day. What made Howard Schultz different was not only his persistence, but the way he looked at coffee itself. Most saw it as a commodity, something people bought to stay awake. Howard saw it as something else entirely, a ritual, a pause in the day, a reason for people to sit together. He carried this belief from a trip to Italy, where he experienced the cafe culture of Milan. There, espresso bars were not just shops. They were living rooms for the city, filled with conversation, connection, and community. This became his hidden key. Starbucks would not merely sell coffee. It would create a third plus. Not home, not work, but a place where life happened between the two. That idea transformed everything. In his pursuit, Howard often repeated to himself, "Chase your dream." It was more than a slogan. It was the fuel that pushed him through rejection. He chased his dream not blindly, but with focus. Another phrase guided him, build step by step. He understood that success was not instant. Starbucks began with a handful of stores. Each one required careful planning, training, and culture. Nothing was rushed. Everything was built step by step until the vision grew strong roots. And perhaps most importantly, he kept reminding himself, I'm still learning. Even when his ideas were dismissed, even when mistakes cost him dearly, he treated every failure as part of the lesson. By saying those words, he gave himself permission to keep growing. These simple English phrases, chase your dream, build step by step, I'm still learning, are not just language to practice. They are blueprints for resilience. Repeat them out loud, and they become more than words. They become anchors for your own journey. Howard's hidden truth was simple. Success is less about coffee beans and more about belief. And when you believe, even the smallest corner cafe can turn into a global symbol. This mindset became contagious. Early employees were not simply hired. They were invited into a mission. Customers felt the difference too. A Starbucks store was not just a place to drink coffee. It felt alive, humming with possibility. People began to see themselves in the brand, ambitious, creative, seeking belonging. In many ways, Howard was not only building a company, he was building a stage where ordinary people could feel extraordinary, one cup at a time. The greatest visions often face their sharpest test at the peak of growth. For Howard Schultz and Starbucks, that test came when the company expanded too quickly. Stores multiplied across cities and countries, but with speed came cracks. Quality slipped, the atmosphere weakened, and the heart of the brand, the experience, was at risk of disappearing. By the mid-2000s, Starbucks was losing its shine. Customers noticed, critics spoke loudly, and the dream seemed to drift from its roots. Howard had stepped away as CEO, but when he saw the company wobbling, he felt a deep responsibility. After years of building step by step, was it all about to collapse? In a dramatic move, Howard returned to lead. His decisions were not easy. He closed hundreds of underperforming stores, cut costs, and even shut down all locations for a day to retrain baristas on the art of making coffee. To some, these choices looked desperate. To Howard, they were essential. It was a moment of humility and courage, an admission that success requires constant renewal. That season was his emotional climax. Standing before employees, shareholders, and the public, he had to prove that Starbucks was more than a fading trend. He reminded everyone that Starbucks was built on connection, not just caffeine. Slowly, the changes worked. Trust returned, customers came back, and the company not only survived, but grew stronger than before. For anyone listening, there is a mirror here. Growth is not only about winning. It is about admitting when you have drifted, pulling back, and daring to start again. The weight of those decisions pressed heavily on him. Imagine the silence of a boardroom when he announced store closures, or the anxious faces of baristas wondering about their future. Yet Howard stood firm, believing that courage meant protecting the soul of Starbucks, even when it hurt. In time, that very pain became proof of his commitment, and employees rallied behind him, proud to be part of a company that chose integrity over easy numbers. So let me ask you this. What's a new practice you've always wanted to start but never did? The truth is, sometimes the act of beginning again, no matter how late, can be the most powerful chapter in your story. Think of Starbucks as a garden. In its early days, the soil was rocky, filled with doubt and rejection. Seeds were planted. Some sprouted, many withered. But with patience, care, and vision, a few strong roots grew. Over time, that garden expanded into orchards across the world. Howard Schultz often spoke of failure as pruning. When a gardener cuts away branches, it looks painful, even destructive. Yet pruning is what allows new life to emerge. In the same way, closing stores or admitting mistakes was never about shrinking the dream. It was about protecting its core. The reframing is clear. Challenges are not endings. They are adjustments. Every setback becomes a chance to return to what matters. For Howard, it was not only about coffee, but about dignity. Providing health care for employees, giving stock options to baristas, ensuring that even the person behind the counter felt part of something larger. This is where healing comes in. Starbucks was not built solely on profits. It was built on the idea that a cup of coffee could carry warmth, respect, and belonging. And just like that, your own life can hold the same values. When storms shake your plans, imagine your dream as a tree. Winds may bend it, branches may break, but if the roots run deep, the tree will stand tall again. The act of reframing, seeing struggle as growth, turns pain into possibility. Howard Schultz's journey is not only the story of a coffee company. It is the story of a child from Brooklyn who refused to let circumstance define him, who turned rejection into resilience, and who believed that even a simple cup could hold the power to connect the world. From poverty to persistence, from slammed doors to open cafes on nearly every continent, his vision reminds us that success is built not in leaps, but in steady, faithful steps. Now it is your turn to stand at a crossroad. One path is comfort, safe, familiar, and predictable. The other path is growth, unsteady, risky, and filled with the unknown. But remember, it was in choosing the uncertain path that Howard built something extraordinary. Take a moment to look at your own life. Where are you standing today? Are you holding back because of fear, or are you willing to build step by step, learning as you go? At this moment, you stand between comfort and growth. Which path will you take? If this video gave you something meaningful, share it with someone who needs encouragement today. And subscribe to keep walking with us on this journey of English and self-growth. Every story, every phrase, every reflection is one more step toward building the life you dream of, just like Howard once did with coffee.